Hi, folks, and welcome to the Meaningful Money Podcast, Season 13, Episode 4. This is the podcast dedicated to helping you put your finances in order. My name is Pete Matthew, and I'm going to share with you everything you need to know and everything you need to do to secure your financial future. I'm here to help you make sense of money. Here we are once again. Great to have you with me. Getting a little bit better at the videoing thing each week. I now have less ridiculous looking monitoring headphones so that I look a little bit less like a goon on the video. So that's good, at least for my ego. Now, in researching this whole season rather, on millennial finance, one of the biggest messages really that comes across is that there's going to be probably a significant reduction in the number of young people who will be able to buy a house. That might well be true. I think it probably will. But I have a sneaking suspicion that, like many of the challenges faced by millennials and those looking to get started and really sort of hit the ground running with their financial planning journey, I think this might be another challenge which can be addressed with some discipline, some good habits, some laser focus, all continuous themes here on Meaningful Money. So that's what we're going to look at today. And so, as usual, after the main body, I'll read a review out that somebody's kindly left in the last few weeks, announce what we're going to be talking about next time. A couple of announcements as well to make after the show, so stay tuned for that. Remember, though, before all of that, this podcast continues to be brought to you by my friends at 7 Investment Management. They've been helping me out here for ages, since the spring of 2011, and I'm super grateful to them for doing so. So please do check out what they're up to. They're at 7im.co.uk. That's the number 7im.co.uk. Go check them out. Now, they say that an Englishman's home is his castle. Sorry if you're listening to this in Scotland or Wales or whatever, but actually not really sure what that means. And certainly if you, from any other nationality, it's a meaningless thing. But, is buying a house really as challenging as people say it is? I think potentially, but we need to be armed with what we need to know about the situation, what we need to do, as always, before we write off the whole idea as a waste of time and mental energy. Saying things like, well, I'll never be able to afford a home. Just maybe you might be able to. So remember, notes and links, all the usual stuff from today's show, they're at the show notes. And it's the only link you need to remember. I'll put the link at the bottom of the video here, meaningfulmoney.tv/MF4. That's for Millennial Finance 4. Okay, I'll try not to do too much referencing to the video because that'll annoy the podcast listener. Okay, let's have a look at everything you need to know first. Right, now, according to my extensive research, the average house price at the end of October 2018 here in the UK is £231,095. Right, that's in the UK. So, of course, that covers a multitude of sins, doesn't it? In London, the average is £473,609. Read it and weep, man alive. In Yorkshire, God's own county, let's face it, it's £163,658. In the southeast, generally, £326,785. In Wales, £160,874. Scotland, £151,508. Northern Ireland, £135,060. So I think we can agree prices are pretty variable, and of course wages vary around the country too. So we're just going to have to use the average for the purposes of our discussions today. Okay. So the UK average house price, 231,095. Right. Now the UK average wage at the minute is somewhere around £27,500, and so that makes the average house price just under 8.5 times the average wage. Now, if a couple are looking to buy a house, maybe one earns the average age and the other just below, perhaps. Let's call it a £50,000 combined household income. Well, that would make the average property just over 4.5 times the combined salary. Right, okay, and as I mentioned in the intro session for this season, when Joe and I bought our first house in 1997, it cost just over twice our combined salary at the time. So the gap is much bigger, right? Houses are more expensive relative to earnings than they've ever been. That is just a fact. We are where we are. That is true. Houses are more expensive relative to wages. That is the first thing we need to know when considering this. But we are where we are. Is it quite as bad, though, as that sounds? Well, the second thing we need to know is that interest is lower, lending is easier, and terms are longer. So I think, is it quite as bad as that, as the sort of disparity between house prices and wages makes out? I would suggest arguably not. All right, so when I bought my first house, the Bank of England base rate was 6.75%, and it went up to 7.5% the following year. Now, some folks who've been around a little longer are listening to this, and they're starting to sound like the old sort of pre-Monty Python gang in their famous, "We Were So Poor" sketch. There's a link in the notes to that. It's a classic. When Ada and I bought our first house in October '89, bank base rate were 14.88%. Tell kids that today, they don't believe you. Yeah, that's enough of that, I think. But, the Bank of England base rate is currently 0.75%. It's a tenth of what it was just after I bought my house. So mortgage repayments are relatively cheap compared to what they were. That's just fact. It's pure maths. It's arguably easier now to get higher income multiples on a mortgage as well. I'm not saying it's a good idea, right? I'm just saying that it's easier. Standard multiples are something like 4 times one salary plus 1 times the other, if you're in a couple. That's a big if. I'm very aware that many of you listening to this are considering buying a house on your own. Maybe it's 3 times the combined income. That's another option. And it is possible to get higher multiples than that, depending on credit score and affordability and all that stuff. On the flip side, the bad old days of getting 100% mortgages where you didn't have to put anything down, no deposit at all, they are gone. So you are going to have to save some kind of a deposit. It's easier to get longer term mortgages now than it used to be. Nobody ever took out 30-year mortgages or longer when I was a lad, or at least I don't remember that. One of my first jobs in financial services was as a mortgage advisor for the Roll and Son Alliance, and so I don't remember anybody getting 30-year loans then. It may be that there was, but I certainly didn't write any. And I know it's possible to get even longer than that now. And of course, longer terms, if you're on a repayment mortgage, brings your payment down, right? So that's fairly common these days. Mortgages are now based on affordability, more, I think, than they used to be. Certainly the Mortgage Market Review a few years ago, that brought that in fairly strictly. Banks certainly are pretty tight on this now. I've told the story before about First Direct graciously agreed to lend me half what they'd already lent me when I came to remortgage one time. So parted ways with them fairly quick. Overall, I think the market is better at offering useful loans to people than it used to be 20 years ago, while not quite at least reverting to the lax practices that got us into the financial crisis of 2008. So, I think there's reasons to be cheerful and optimistic about getting a loan to buy a house. Third thing I think we need to bear in mind when we're considering this is that house ownership is accepted as the ideal, right? But is it really? I think, as of 2016, 63.4% of the UK population owned a home. And that's dropped from 73.3% in 2007. It looks like there's a decline going on, but I'm not a statistician, okay? There's loads of factors at play there that I don't know about, I'm sure. So 63.4% of the UK population owned a home, according to the last figures in 2016. That's versus 51.4% in Germany. The US stat, that's similar to the UK at 63.5%. So roughly a third of Brits are presumably renting, either privately or for local authority or housing associations or living with family. I think that the sort of deep-seated desire to buy a home stems in part from Mrs. Thatcher's right to buy policy back in the early 80s. It was in her first ever speech as leader of the Conservative Party in 1975. That's the year of my birth, if you're keeping track. She declared that she believed in a property-owning democracy. One of those sort of paradigm-shifting speeches, really. The right to buy policy enabled local authority tenants to have the right to buy their own home for the house that they were renting from the council for a massive discount. Some say that it shifted wealth away from the state and into the public's hands. It's fairly sort of classic Conservative policy. Others say it has created a property bubble and reduced the housing stock for low-income families. I think both of those views are probably right, but I'll definitely leave the debate on that sort of stuff to people much more politically minded than I am. I wonder whether buying a home really is the best possible outcome for everyone. In fact, actually, I'm sure it's not the best possible outcome for everyone. Nothing is best for everyone because everyone is different. And I think we should all consider whether home ownership really is the best thing for us in our unique situation. For example, are we likely to be moving around a lot with our job? If so, it might make more sense to rent, surely. I wonder what you think about that. Is home ownership the be all and end all for you personally? Because that's the only way we can answer the question, right? What is it for us? Is it a lofty goal for us? Or actually, do I want to maintain the kind of freedom that comes from renting? So I think there's more nuance, really, to the lazy proposition, which often gets spouted out when it comes to millennials, that property ownership is out of reach, right? It might be, and it obviously will be out of reach for some people. Not everybody's going to be able to buy a home. The stats say that 1 in 3 of us don't own a home anyway, across the whole UK population, not just millennials. So, maybe that's found its own level. Prices, yes, house prices are higher relative to wages than they were 20 years ago, but interest rates are lower and lending is easier. Okay, so I think those are the things we need to keep in mind as we consider this, and not just accept this sort of tabloid trope that says, well, buying a home is going to be impossible for most millennials. I don't buy that. So with that in mind, what do you need to do so that if you do want to buy a home, you put yourself in the best place to do that? Let's have a look at what you need to do right now. First thing you need to do is to suck up any free money that's going begging, okay? Suck it up, folks, right? We hear a lot about the bank of mum and dad. Now, that might or might not be an option for you to draw on. Everybody's circumstances are different. Parents who are in a position to help their children often decide that property purchase is the best possible use of their money, and they're happy to help for that purpose. I have that conversation a lot with my clients. We'd love to help our children buy a house one day. If I want to make a gift to my kids, it will be for a deposit for a house or something like that. That's very often where people's minds first go when it comes to giving money to their kids. You know your own situation. Maybe you can approach the Wrinklies and ask for some help with this. More universally available to everybody, as long as you're under 40 years old and over 18, is the Lifetime ISA. And that doesn't require you to have a potentially awkward conversation with your parents. The Lifetime ISA is a special kind of ISA. It's intended for use either to buy your first home or to use towards your retirement. Like I say, you've got to be under 40 to take one out, and you can only put in a maximum of £4,000 per year. But here's the kicker. The government will add to that £4,000, or up to that you put in, with another £1,000. Basically, you get a 25% bonus. You put £4 in, the government will add another pound to make it up to £5. All right? Up to a maximum of 4,000 from you, 1,000 from them in any one tax year. Now, if you take the money out of a Lifetime ISA for any reason other than first home purchase, and there's a pounds figure, I think it's 400 or 450,000 that your first home has to be less than that. So first home purchase or before age 60. If you take money out for any reason other than those two things, you will pay back essentially 25% of what's in there. All right, it's a 25% exit penalty. Stay tuned though no, I'm just trying to think. No, you see, this is the problem with being ahead with recording these. On Monday, the 21st of January, which is before this one comes out, I spoke to a gentleman called Michael Johnson, formidable intellect. He is essentially the father of the Lifetime ISA and lots of other very good ideas that have happened in financial services. A great conversation with him. I'll link it in the notes. Listen back to that if you haven't already. So, where else are you going to get a 25% uplift on your money overnight with the specific aim of saving for a property, right? Suck it up. It's free money. And it's specifically for the goal of saving for your first house. So Lifetime ISAs are definitely worth considering. Second thing you need to do is to work the goal back. All right, work the goal back. You're going to need to get wise to the challenge of buying a house so that you can meet it head on. How much will a house cost? Where you would like to live. What size deposit are you going to need? How much extra cash might you want to have handy after you've bought the house? Maybe to furnish it, decorate a little bit, or to have as an emergency fund for anything unforeseen after you've moved in. When you know what deposit you need, then you can plan to work towards it and save towards it. Work in that bonus on a Lifetime ISA if you can get one. Ask mum and dad if they can help. Work out how you're going to get there. Start with the goal and work back. I've made a little calculator. I'm reading this and thinking, have I? Yeah, I think I have. And that will help you, which you can get to that at the show notes as well. It's an Excel sheet, right? But I'll see if I can get it to work in Google Sheets as well. My Excel skills are only just acceptable, but it might just give you some idea as to how to get to the goal once you've identified it. Start with the goal and work back and work out what a plan for getting there. Third thing you need to do if this is important to you is to act like it. Act like it's important, all right? You're going to need to take it seriously. So how do we do that? Well, sell stuff, right? Do everything you can to reach this target, right? To have a deposit for a house. Find everything you don't need and sell it on eBay or buy-sell swap groups on Facebook or whatever. You might be surprised at how much you can raise this way, right? I've known people who have raised thousands of pounds simply by selling stuff they didn't need. Might be in small chunks, right? But it soon adds up. You could even look for people giving stuff away for free on Facebook or places like that, and then flip it for a profit. You'd never know. All you need really very often is access to a vehicle to pick things up. So people just like free to a good home, a sofa or whatever. You pick it up and flip it for 50 quid or something. Whatever. Get serious though. We're going to have to do things, perhaps think outside the box and do some stuff that we weren't intending to do to get to our goal, if it's that important to us. Go without some stuff. Sacrifice. Yeah, sounds like it sucks, right? But let's be clear, if you want this badly enough, everything else fades in comparison. Keep your old iPhone and don't upgrade every 2 years. Don't go out every weekend, but maybe once a month only. Ride your bike to work and take lunch in rather than buying it in. Do everything you can to save on expenses and channel it back into your goal. Some great tools as well from some of the new startup challenger banks where you can save regularly. There's Facebook Messenger plugin called Plum as well, which will enable you to do that. It basically scans your bank account and saves automatically for you. I interviewed the founder of that ages ago. I'll put a link to that as well. And there's all kinds of ways that you can force yourself to save regularly as well, even when it comes to, you buy a sandwich or whatever, if you do that, and if you don't, take it from home. And an app will round it up. I can't remember the name of that one. Will round up to the nearest pound and save the difference in a savings pot. There are loads of ways you can use technology to help you save as well. Maybe you get a second job. Yes, seriously, maybe a second job. Find a way to earn more money somehow. Any pay rises you get, bank the extra. If this is serious for you and you really want to buy a house, then maybe you say, right, I'm going to live on what I'm earning right now. And if I'm able to earn any more, either by a pay rise or by a second job, I will put every penny of my increased earnings away towards my goal. Just don't spend it. Bank it instead. Okay? Live at home, maybe. Shock, horror, gasp. Maybe, just maybe, you might have to go home and live with your parents for a few months or a few years. There's no shame in that if it's towards a goal, right? In fact, it's smart. If it gets you to your goal more quickly, it makes perfect sense to do that. Dave Ramsey of the Total Money Makeover fame, brilliant book, says that you need to live like no one else so that later you can live like no one else, right? Maybe all your friends will laugh if you move back home, but who cares? They'll still be the ones whining about not being able to afford a home in 10 years' time, and you'll be way ahead of them by then because you did what was necessary. So take it seriously, folks, right? And don't discount any way of amassing money. If you want it badly enough, you can do it. Fourth thing we need to do is to get our financial house in order, right? There's some things you can do to improve your chances of getting a mortgage one day. Most of us will need a mortgage. So, that's a credit arrangement. So there's things you can do about that. Definitely check your credit score. There's loads of places you can do that. This is somewhat outside my own sphere of expertise, okay? But there's a great post over on Money to the Masses. My buddy Damien Fay, he's done a good post on how to improve your credit score. I'll link to that in the show notes. Work your way through that and see what you can do, and do whatever you need to do to improve your credit score, because it will get you better terms on your mortgage one day. Eliminate any necessary regular commitments out of your bank account. Do you pay for the gym and not use it? Cancel the membership. Maybe you've got software subs or Netflix or other things that you can do without. Shut them down if you don't need them, okay? And to the extent that you're serious about your goal to save a house deposit. Make sure you are always on time with any payments that you have to make. So if you use a credit card to budget, as some of you do, make sure you set an automatic direct debit to at least pay off the minimum, just so that you don't forget, right? Missed or late payments stay on your record for a long, long time. So make sure you hit all your payments on time every month so that you haven't got any marks against your credit score. Always go on the hunt for lower cost regular bills, right? If you run a car, look for the cheapest acceptable insurance cover. Ditto utilities, mobile phone contracts, all that sort of stuff. Affordability is a really big factor when you're getting a mortgage, so keep your costs as low as you can. Basically, keep your financial life in good order. It'll serve you very well to do that. Right? Get your financial house in order. And the final thing I think you need to do on this is to think wider. All right? Just think maybe a little bit outside the box if you really want to own your own home. For example, maybe you could live somewhere else, right? Pretty drastic, I know. But maybe you could buy a great house somewhere else in the country for a lot less than you can in your hometown. It is drastic, and obviously there's work and family considerations too, but it just might be an option for you if you're listening to this. Definitely look at some of the government schemes to help first-time buyers onto the ladder. Things like shared ownership, help to buy, the new starter homes scheme. There's a good article on the BBC website about those. Again, I'll link it in the notes. Maybe you can buy in conjunction with somebody, maybe your parents or other family members, where they own a share of the property and you rent it from them. Leave no stone unturned in your search for ways to buy a house if that is your goal. And that's the whole point, really, folks. If this is important to you, you will find a way. And it's super important that you do that. So think a little bit wider, maybe, than you might have thought about up to now. Damn it, you were hoping for a magic bullet, weren't you? Right, a really easy way to make it possible for you to buy a house. Well, I'm sorry to disappoint on that score. The mechanism for buying a house really hasn't changed at all since I did it 23 years ago or something, 22 years ago. But neither really have the ways of attaining that goal, right? I do believe it's more challenging for today's prospective first-time buyers than it was for their parents. But I don't think it's an insurmountable challenge by any degree. I think there are ways you can meet the challenge head-on and achieve your goal of owning a home one day. I wonder if you agree. Let me know in the comments section. meaningfulmoney.tv/MF4 for Millennial Finance 4. I wonder if I said session MF4 at the beginning. Hopefully not. meaningfulmoney.tv/MF4 for Millennial Finance 4. That's where you'll find all the links that I've talked about, and that's where you can leave comments and questions as well, so definitely do that. Okay, here's a review from Digger D67, who says, an inspiration. Thank you, Digger D. I was recommended your podcast by a colleague, and I'm so glad I took them up on it. Having turned 50, retirement planning is very much on my mind. Although I've been paying into a pension for 30 years, I didn't realize there was so much more I could do to plan for my future. I'm on it now big time, and you inspired me to seek advice. What's great is that because of your podcast, I've been able to find an advisor who talks through exactly what you've been saying. Many thanks. Well done, Digger D67 from here in the UK. I really appreciate your review. I'm glad it's been useful to you. Good luck with your retirement planning. Stay the course, and you'll thank yourself one day because you're the one doing the hard work, right? And well done for paying into a pension for 30 years. Good effort. Okay, if you like what you hear here, then leave me a review. Wherever you listen to podcasts, leave me a review. If you're listening on an Apple device, then meaningfulmoney.tv/iTunes is a great place to do that. But wherever you listen to podcasts, please leave me a review there. It really, really helps. Okay, a couple of announcements quickly. Firstly, Meaningful Academy. So we're working on something pretty special here to help those of you for whom really this podcast season is most clearly aimed. Those of you getting started with your personal finance journey. It's called Meaningful Academy, and it's not ready yet. Okay, so this is going to go out early February. I'm thinking it's probably going to be ready at the end of March. It's going to be a powerful resource, though. It's going to be full of videos, tools, and other resources to help set you on a firm financial foundation. And we're going to be looking for 50 founder members who are willing to feedback about the content in there. Help me shape it into something you want to use. All right, so if this sounds interesting to you, head over to meaningfulacademy.com and register your interest there. meaningfulacademy.com. You're not committing yourself by doing that. You're just letting me know that you'd like to be kept informed. That's all it is, as we develop the thing. Hoping to open the doors, as I say, in late March, all being well. So meaningfulacademy.com. Name and email address in there, and I'll keep you posted. Cheers. Thank you for that. It's going to be great. One thing very much open for business, though, is the Meaningful Money Facebook group, and this has just gone nuts. I mean, we opened it sort of second week in December. As I record this in the middle of January, there's already over 380 people in the group. Loads of questions coming each day. It's keeping me quite busy as well, but the great thing is it isn't just me answering the questions. There's loads of people from all kinds of walks of life in there doing a great job of answering each other's questions, which is super exciting. So nothing just worth mentioning, actually. It's a closed group. It's a secret group. So nothing that you post in there will show up in your public Facebook feed. Just worth mentioning. Meaningfulmoney.tv/community is the place to go for that. Meaningfulmoney.tv/community, and that'll redirect you to the Facebook group. Okay, next time, folks, I will be looking at the fourth challenge that millennials face, which is a very different job market to perhaps the one your parents started out with, right? A challenging and different job market. Remember, you got a question on that, you can leave me a question, or you can leave me a voicemail, send me an email or whatever at meaningfulmoney.tv/askpete. That's the place to go for that. And that's it for this week, folks. Hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying this season, and I hope it was helpful. Any questions or comments on today's show? meaningfulmoney.tv/MF4 for Millennial Finance 4. Hope you enjoyed it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. I'll talk to you next time.